The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Myself here, Andrew Krinsky, with Bruce Collins, our product line manager for the PTP line, and he will be specifically going into the PTP 450 as well as the 450i. So without further ado, Bruce, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Andrew, and thanks everybody for joining. Today we're going to talk about a particular portion of our PTP portfolio. This is the PTP 450 and PTP 450i. I have some new product announcements. We'll talk about those new products and features, and then we'll also go through some of the background on these products, just in case you might not be familiar with them, some of the features and capabilities of these products. So let's go ahead and get started. I believe the presentation will be about 25 minutes or so. Then we'll have plenty of time to take any questions. If you want to put those in the chat window, we'll take those as they come, and then certainly have plenty of time at the end to go through those in more detail. So again, when we talk about our point-to-point portfolio, we're talking about the sub-6 gigahertz spectrum here. So this is unlicensed, lightly licensed, in the case of 3.5 gigahertz, a licensed band, and covers really the whole spectrum of vertical markets. We'll be talking about products that can fit into service provider space, wireless ISPs to connect up business customers to provide backhaul to perhaps some areas of the network, and certainly for some of the power users that need a little more dedicated spectrum, you can use point-to-point products as spurs off of the access network. You'll see with our 450i product that we've taken a major step into industrial communications area, and you'll see applications for oil and gas, electric utilities, transportation, and the PTP 450i has been very strong out of the gate in industrial areas and industrial verticals. And then by covering 4.9 gigahertz, we also have now a ruggedized industrial product for 4.9 gigahertz spectrum. This is in the United States. This is a 50 megahertz of spectrum that's set aside for public safety applications used by state and local government. So it's an excellent use for video surveillance, leased line replacements, and basic connectivity for remote offices. And of course, we have other point-to-point products that fit into the federal defense space, not so much the PTP 450 line, but the PTP 700. And I'll kind of point out that when I talk about this portfolio or this section of the Cambium portfolio that's focused on sub-6 point-to-point, we really have four products. We have the PTP 450, the 450i. These are the two products I'll be talking about today. And then at a little bit of the higher end of the spectrum, we have the PTP 650. There are other webinars on that topic and lots of material on our webpage and community forum for the 650. And then the PTP 700 is really focused on national defense, federal military applications globally. And that product was released late last year. The big differentiating factors here are the PTP 700 covers the 4 gigahertz NATO band spectrum. So in addition to the 5 gigahertz, it covers 4 gigahertz, and it also has some of the security vetting that's required but for the national defense markets. But today we're going to talk about the PTP 450 and the 450i specifically. I'll start with the PTP 450. The things to note about this product is it's available in 3 bands. So both the 5 gigahertz band covering the 5.4 and 5.8 unlicensed bands, the 3.5 gigahertz licensed band, and then in the U.S. and Canada and parts of the world that allow 3.65, this product is available and capable in that lightly licensed 3.65 band. Covers 5, 7, 10, and 20 megahertz channels. So lots of flexibility in how it's deployed. We do see this is the one product we have that's point-to-point that's available in 3 gigahertz. So it's pretty clear if you have 3 gigahertz spectrum and you're looking for a point-to-point product from Cambium, this is the one. This will do about 125. With the point-to-point mode, we can, in configurations, we can see as much as 130 megabits per second aggregate capacity. So excellent solution for business customers, high-end symmetric services. If I want to offer a 20 by 20 or a 40 by 40 service to a particular business customer, the PTP 450 as a low-cost entry point to allow you to deliver that high-quality, high-availability link using point-to-point. You can do synchronization using a UGPS, and the range on this product goes out to 40 miles, and it can actually go a little bit further if you use our connectorized model, which allows you to use an external antenna to go even further. But typically, we're looking in this range. Another nice thing about the PTP 450 is you can do uplink, downlink, adjustable TDD configuration, so you can adjust it up to about 90% of the traffic flow in one direction or 90% in the other direction, which makes it really useful for video surveillance applications. So I can put most of my traffic is going to be going in one direction, and then my control signals to pan, tilt, zoom the camera are going to be coming in the other direction. So I can put most of the traffic in the direction of the video flow. Supports quality of service, 2 layers. You can do layer 2 and layer 3 classification, and then clearly separate the voice traffic as a higher priority than the video and data traffic. And then this product has been integrated into the wireless manager and will be in RC and Maestro, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. As far as network management, it also has a built-in web-based GUI, so it's very easy to manage directly on the radio and get the link up and running. We also have integrated this with Link Planner, so I'll talk about Link Planner a little bit later, but this is a tool that lets you do, it's a free tool, anybody can download it, and it lets you do both reliability calculations and predictions as well as capacity predictions on a point-to-point link. So before I go out and invest in the radio, I can select which device to use, which kind of antenna gain I need, what band I should use, all these different what-if scenarios to make sure that the equipment that I procure and deploy is going to meet the end customer's requirements. So we did have a question come here. I'm going to, like I said, I'll take questions as they come, but this was a particular question around do I have to use GPS sync on PTP or not, or is it just an optional feature? And it's exactly right. It's not a required feature. It's mainly used when I'm going to have more than one point-to-point link on a tower, and I want to make sure that the 2 links don't self-interfere with each other. So if I'm going to put, say, 4 or 6 links on the same tower, I can actually put the channel planning, I can actually put the channels directly adjacent with each other. There's no need for guard band with these radios because of the really strong filtering that's used for out-of-band emissions. So I can put these adjacent channels, I can put them on the same tower, and then if I use the synchronization capability, it will make sure that they transmit and receive at the same time. So when I do synchronization, I do need to use the UGPS to provide that 1 pulse per second signal to as a time reference, and then need to configure the radios with the same channel bandwidth and the same TDD ratio so that they are can be completely synchronized in their transmit and receive portions of the frame. So yeah, good question. And if you're just going to have a single PTP link on a tower, or you're going to have a couple links but you can separate them some distance apart from different channels, then synchronization is optional at that point. And with the PTP 450, there are several deployment options to provide optimal gain or most efficient gain and trade-off on installation size and cost. Over on the left is the typical or traditional approach, which is the integrated antenna. That's what you saw on the previous slide. You can see it's a single drop cable, provides power over Ethernet connection, and then the antenna itself is built into that housing. So everything is in that device with the radio and the antenna. If I move towards the right, there's a clip accessory which adds several dB of gain by focusing the beam. It narrows the beam, which also provides some benefit of focusing the beam and avoiding any other interference in the area. And then if I want a little bit additional gain, I can go with the reflector dish, which you can see is the next column over, and provides even more gain, even more distance. And then for the most link budget, we offer the connectorized version, which you can see there's two N-type cables, and those can be routed over to a 2-foot, 3-foot, even 4-foot dish to provide even more link budget. And all of these options are built into Link Planner, so when you put the plan in place, you'll be able to see what the benefit is both on capacity and range by selecting these different accessories. It's a simple pull-down menu to say which of these options am I using. So we'll move on to the PTP 450i. This is a product that was introduced late last year, like in fourth quarter of 2015. And there are a number of new capabilities added that are significant enhancements, and I'll talk about where those areas are. First of all, this is a wideband radio. It covers 4.9 to 5.925. What that means for an end customer or for a service provider or operator is a lot more flexibility. Not only can I cover the 5.8 and 5.4 gigahertz bands, it also opens up 5.2 and the 5.1 band. Now 5.2 is similar to the 5.4 band, similar power requirements and radar avoidance and radar detection requirements. 5.1 is more similar to the 5.8 band, which treats the radio or allows the radio to use significantly higher EIRP or transmit power limits and radiated power limits to go longer range. So the other nice thing is that the 5.1 band has opened up about 100 megahertz of spectrum that wasn't previously available. So in many cases, it's actually pretty clean spectrum. Throughout, this is mostly a North America-centric view, but rest of the world having that entire gigahertz of spectrum available certainly opens it up to any spectrum that's available, regardless of the country of deployment. And then significantly, it also opens up 4.9 gigahertz, which is the public safety band in the U.S. and also available in some other countries in South America, and also I believe Australia and New Zealand allow use of 4.9 gigahertz. So this becomes the preferred solution for public safety applications that require about 100 to 130 megabits per second. This 4.9 gigahertz is by rule or by FCC requirements limited to 20 megahertz channels. So the other thing we've done with the 450i is made it very ruggedized and secure. You'll see the housing on the right-hand side it's an all-metal housing with a sealed enclosure. We're following the industrial design of the PTP 650, which has been quite successful over a number of years in the most harsh environments. So we've used the similar industrial design. Again, all-metal housing. You'll see integrated and connectorized options on the right-hand side there. The panel antenna is a 23 dBi integrated panel. And then you also have in the upper left you can see the N-type connectors exposed for connection to an external dish. We have this ruggedized tilt bracket that you can see. You get a nice view of that in the picture there, which gives you all the flexibility for whether you're using connectorized or integrated. It's a nice bracket that allows for whatever installation that you might run into. You can also see the IP66 and 67, meaning that's for water and dust intrusion. So that prevents, allows these units to be deployed in really harsh environments. You can see in the picture on the right there, we've actually had this immersed in a fish tank here in our office outside of Chicago. You can see the fish swimming by there. The fish is fine. Don't worry about it. It's going to be just fine. And so is the radio. It's not meant for deploying underwater, but this is a good example of the ruggedization of the unit. Also significantly, the 450i is much higher transmit power. So in those bands that can use it, like the 5.8 gigahertz band and the 5.1 gigahertz band, you can actually go as high as 28 dBm transmit power. And then when you combine that with the high gain integrated antenna and the excellent noise factor and noise figure for these radios, you'll see in Link Planner just excellent link budgets and fade margins on this radio, and the reliability of these links is really best in class, right up there with the with our PTP 650 product. And then some of the features that are going to be coming from on the PTP 450i. What we've done is with the 450i, we've added an additional network processor, and we've increased the size of the FPGA in this unit, which is really, if you think about it in terms of a computer, we've given this device a lot more memory and a lot faster processor. And that means that this device has 3 times the processing power of the PTP 450. And one of the first features that you'll see coming down the pipeline with this product is the introduction of 30 megahertz channels and 40 megahertz channels. 30 megahertz channels will be available in the June timeframe, so we're about a month away. We're going to be starting beta trials on that shortly, and that will support around 200 megabits per second capacity, transmit plus receive. And then later this year, we'll be adding 40 megahertz channels, which will allow the radio to run at around 250 megabits per second. These will be there's no license key associated with that, so as that feature becomes available, you'll just be able to upgrade the firmware in the PTP 450i, and it automatically then be able to select 30 or 40 megahertz channels and take advantage of the extra capacity. So if you buy the 450i today, it's upgradable, and there's no charge later on to add that additional channel bandwidth and additional capacity. Another feature, this is down in the hardware itself, but is a capability we call dynamic interference filtering. And one of the things when we've introduced this radio that covers a 1 gigahertz of spectrum, or 4.9 to 5.9 gigahertz, is we want to look at how can I make sure that I'm only detecting signal in the channel of interest. So as I select the different channels and different bands, how do I make sure that I'm only focused on what I'm interested in? And the way we do this is we do what's called dynamic interference filtering. And what we do is we shift a very precise filter along the band and basically wrap around the selected channel and filter out interference from all the neighboring channels. And this has, in early deployments, and we've been deploying this radio now for about, I guess about 6 months, the feedback has been outstanding that this has provided excellent interference avoidance, interference reduction, and the fade margins and the availability of the radio has been excellent. So this did add a little bit of extra cost to the radio, but we're seeing the benefits and improvement in adjacent channel interference. So definitely something to take a look at when you get your hands on a 450i, and you'll see the benefit in noisy environments on how to deploy these point-to-point links. I'm just going to pop open the questions here. Oh, sorry, I sometimes use acronyms, so if I do, go ahead and feel free to ask one. One of the questions here is, what does the acronym SKU stand for? So this is really must have used that on a previous one, but that's a stock keeping unit, and it really means that as a benefit to both a distributor or to a network operator, I can have one unit on the shelf that serves multiple purposes. So in the context of the PTP 450i, I can have a single radio, and whether I deploy at 5.8 or 5.1 or 5.4 or 4.9, I can use the same exact radio, and I just configure it differently. So it just cuts down on the number of different devices I need to keep in inventory. So it's a stock keeping unit. The other thing I didn't mention on the 450i is that it has 2 RJ45 ports on the back of the unit. One of those ports is the power over Ethernet port that is the single drop cable down to the base of the tower or mast that you're deploying on. And the radio does support standard 802.3 AT power, so I can use a standard off-the-shelf PoE switch to power this device, or you can use the power over Ethernet injectors that Cambium provides. There's a second port on here called the aux port, and that's auxiliary port. And what that allows you to do is do a PoE output from that port. And that gives you the ability to power a device. And what we're showing here, this is back to that aquarium picture. We actually have a camera deployed inside that aquarium, and we're powering that camera directly off the radio. So again, making the deployment much simpler. If I want to add a video surveillance application, maybe I'm doing video surveillance as a network, or in some cases our customers are even just putting a simple video surveillance camera at the tower just so they can keep an eye on things. They can see what's happening for security or safety reasons around the base of that tower. And it's a simple way to just plug a PoE camera right into that auxiliary port, and now I have a good view of what's happening around my installation. So nice flexibility, and that's what you see here is the picture of that camera monitoring the fish. By going with the ruggedized housing, we also are able to support ATEX HAZLOC solutions. This is a capability that will be shipping in June. The hardware has now been checked out and proven. We're adding some features into the software to support this, but essentially ATEX HAZLOC is narrowly focused on oil and gas applications in areas where there's a hazardous environment. So in this case, if on either a wellhead or in a drilling platform or a pipeline where there might be a hazardous environment or explosive environment, we've tested the hardware to both the European standard as well as North America standard. You can see them listed there on the lower left. And then there's also a software control to limit the amount of EIRP that's allowed depending on the gas group that you're operating in. So there'll be, again, a drop-down list or a drop-down menu in the software that says this is the gas group that I'm working with, and it will limit the radio's EIRP to make sure it stays within that safe limit. The ATEX HAZLOC is a separate model number, so it is you can't add that to a standard unit. You have to purchase the particular ATEX HAZLOC model, and part of that is because we have to validate and excuse me, and audit that going back through to the factory. So we have to track any ATEX HAZLOC devices through our entire manufacturing process, and so therefore when you do come across a requirement for ATEX HAZLOC, there's separate part numbers and models to order for that area. If you're interested in that, there'll be more announcements coming in June, and that product will then be available for shipping also in June. The next product we'll talk about is the PTP 450 and 900 megahertz. This product has just started shipping this week, so it's being announced on social media, and there's more information now on our website. So this product is based on our PMP 450i, which was released for 900 megahertz about 60 days ago, I guess. And so it's essentially what you'll see in the picture to the right is the point-to-point radio, and then you also see it mated up with our Yagi antenna. And the mechanics with the Yagi antenna make it real nice and easy to deploy. That's about a 12 dBi Yagi that is sold separately from the radio. This will give excellent propagation. When you go to the lower frequencies and get down to 900 megahertz, you'll see just excellent propagation through foliage and distance. So this is, while the air interface will support up to 200 kilometers or about 122 miles, we regularly see links going out to sort of the 40-mile, 50-mile range. So this is, again, with the right link budget and topology and terrain, you can go long distance with this product. This operates in the ISM band, so there's 26 megahertz of spectrum starting from 902 to 928, and it supports 5, 7, 10, and 20 megahertz channels. And again, you've got about that 26 megahertz of spectrum to play with. 25 dBm transmit power, and again, this is leveraging the 2x2 MIMO design and OFDM modulations to give up to 130 megabits per second in that 20 meg channel. So you can really see excellent capacity in that 900 megahertz spectrum that we didn't have before. And this uses the low voltage power scheme, 30 volts PoE. So if you are deploying or have deployed our traditional FSK product at 900. It's very easy to swap out that FSK 900 backhaul and put in this new PTP 450 900 megahertz backhaul and take advantage of that significant uptick in capacity. So again, lots of capacity, lots of propagation, and a really nice mechanical packaging with this 12 dBi Yagi. This is also supported in Link Planner. It's there today if you want to do some planning and take a look at what kind of capacity you could expect to see. You'll see that in Link Planner if you download it even today. And again, I mentioned this product started shipping. It started shipping to our channel last Monday. So our channel distributors and value-added resellers should have this in their hands. And if and you can order this and start to get some experience with it and deploying it today. I wanted to mention a couple other things that we do just for ruggedization. We do this for our PTP 450i. We do salt fog testing. This is to make sure that if you're deploying this in a coastal environment where there's lots of saline in the air or salt spray, we do testing up to mil standard 810G. I mentioned the IP66 and 67 dust and water intrusion testing, and you also saw the aquarium example, but this is some more engineering examples of how we do that testing. All of our radios go through a shock and vibration testing. This is one of the test fixtures from the lab that simulates all of the shocks that would go through a situation where a radio is being delivered from the distributor to your hands, from your hands in the back of the truck out to the site of installation, and hauling it up the tower. There's all these profiles that are defined by the military standard testing, and we follow all those for shock and vibration to make sure that the unit holds up to all of those situations. Apologies, I'm catching a little bit of a cold here. We also have introduced recently what's called a quick deploy positioner. This is another, if you think of it as an accessory or another application that can be used with the PTP 450 or 450i. What this allows, what the application for this is for rapid deployment, tactical environments where I'm going to need to quickly set up a link, and I don't want to have to spend a lot of time aligning it or sending RF experts out to the field to try to set up a link. What happens here is I put the PTP 450i on the positioner, I power the unit up, and it takes about 3 minutes. The unit scans the horizon, both the azimuth and the elevation, by going vertical and horizontal, and locks onto the highest peak signal. So you can quickly set the link up, turn it on, you've got communications in less than 3 minutes. And if you have to later on move it down the road, put it somewhere else, again, it'll reestablish that alignment. So it's great for those rapid deployments. You can eliminate the need for on-site technical resources, and this is available and interoperable with our PTP 650, 700, and now the 450i. I've talked a bit about Link Planner. This is a free software package that's available for download from our support website. You can see here that in the middle of the picture, there's a path profile. This really is showing the terrain between point A and point B. I can enter those 2 points into Link Planner either through a series of GPS coordinates. I can simply go on to Google Maps or Google Earth and select 2 points, and then import them into Link Planner. So it's very easy to get your data in. And then I can do a series of what-if scenarios to select what kind of antenna I'm using. So in the case of the 450, whether I want to use one of those, reflector dish, or whether I want to use an external antenna, or if I'm going to use the internal or integrated antenna, I can do those different choices, and it'll give me the capacity that I can expect on that link. I can also select things like how high is the antenna, what's my noise floor, what power limits I'm using, channel bandwidth. So all those different what-if scenarios to determine am I going to have enough capacity to deliver and enough fade margin to deliver reliably the requirements of the end customer. And with Link Planner, we can do both point-to-point and point-to-multipoint planning, and all of that can be done within a single project file. So in this case, you can see a network that has several point-to-multipoint sectors, as well as point-to-point links serving as backhaul or to individual customers. Another area for management, in addition to the built-in web interface, we support a new capability, which is our cloud-based management system called CN Maestro. About middle of the year, we were going to introduce the device agent for the PTP platform, PTP 450 and PNP 450, 450i. And what this provides is an end-to-end view. It's a series of hierarchical dashboards, geographical views, device inventory, and just as important is this concept called zero-touch onboarding, which makes it much simpler to provision and add devices to the network. And CN Maestro will ultimately work with all of the different devices from Cambium. So whether you're deploying point-to-multipoint, point-to-point, our Wi-Fi access points, whatever the device, you'll be able to have a single place to go and manage those. And that'll be available through our cloud-based management interface, as well as for those that would prefer to operate their own servers that can be deployed locally in sort of a NOC-based architecture as well. So there's a lot more information available about this on our website and a number of other webinars that you can learn more about CN Maestro. But this is really a game changer for Cambium as far as how the entire network can be managed from a single location. So it's a real step forward in network management. And there's kind of a graphical or schematic view of how that might work, where you can see the point-to-point links for long distance over here on the left. You've got your distribution, which can be point-to-point 450 or 450i, PNP 450, and then our ePNP product line, as well as our access products, whether it's the CN pilot programs or the E500, E400 access points. And then overlaying all of that is the CN Maestro for complete lifecycle management, whether it's planning, procurement, provisioning, and then management support. So lots of different functionality and flexibility that's available through CN Maestro. So I'll just close with a couple of other items here. I don't know, Andrew, you want to touch on these different areas?
Yeah, Bruce, I can. Thank you so much for all that. I want to thank you, everyone, for joining. So just some side notes here with social media. Obviously, we love to hear from all of you, your stories, your deployments. We've had some customers do a 360 view of their towers with a drone, and it's been very cool to see. So we have video of that on our forums and our Facebook pages. So it's always great to hear your guys' stories. So I'd recommend sharing those on all of our forum, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube pages. Please get in contact with us, as well as even like Bruce. We have a lot of our product line managers that respond and look at what you guys are saying and any questions you might have throughout the process. So it's always a great tool to have. As you can see here from the forum, ideas, knowledge bases, your stories, you name it, it's all up there. So without that, I think, Bruce, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, there's quite a few questions on here. So we'll take some questions and then I'll close with the video contest that we're running. But let me take a few questions here, and then if you have more questions, go ahead and put them in. First one here is, what is the key differences between the PTP 450i and the PTP 650? Where would I choose the 650 over the PTP 450? So this is really a trade-off in capacity and price, as many things are. The PTP 650 does up to 450 megabits per second, whereas the 450i with the 40 meg channels will be around 250 megabits per second. So if you need that extra capacity, the 650 is the better way to go. The 650 also has capabilities such as the ability to run a fiber interface. It supports synchronous Ethernet and 1588 timing. It supports IPv6. The 650, what else am I forgetting here? But essentially the 650, so in addition to more capacity, also just offers a richer feature set. I think I mentioned IPv6 for management. So basically, if you're looking for particular features that are needed for a particular application, The 650 is a better solution, as well as if you're needing the the most capacity. The other key difference between the two platforms is that the PTP 650 supports what we call dynamic spectrum optimization, and that's the ability to, in real time, scan all of the other channels that are operating and determine, or all the other channels, and determine if there's a better channel to jump to. And in a hitless fashion, it will jump over to that new channel. So that's another sort of significant difference in how the two architectures work. Next question here is, are there any drawbacks in using dynamic channel in everyday operations? No. So the nice thing about so this is referring back to that dynamic channel, which is not the DSO, but the capability to. I'll switch back to that slide real quickly here. This is referring back to this dynamic interference filtering. So the nice thing about this is there's nothing to configure here. There's nothing that you have to turn on or turn off. This feature just works by filtering out the interference that might be coming from the channels outside of what I'm interested in. So there's really no downside, and there's nothing to turn on or enable. You just get the benefit of the improved hardware design. Like I said, this adds a little more cost to the radio, but in those noisy environments, it's going to be well worth it in delivering that extra noise immunity. The latency on the 900 megahertz product. So their next question was, how does the 900 megahertz PTP 450 support low latency? The latency on the PTP products is around 3 to 5 milliseconds in one direction. So that's certainly adequate for any type of voice, video, internet traffic. So that, and it is no different on the 900 megahertz platform than it would be on the 5 gigahertz platform or the 3.5 gigahertz platform for that matter. So it's about 3 to 5 milliseconds. We've got a few more questions here. The next one is, can CN Maestro be used to monitor third-party equipment? That capability is in progress. The way CN Maestro works, it's a little different than a traditional management system. In the cases with the Cambium Networks products, it's actually using a device agent that sits on the radio and calls back to the server. So it actually has a device agent that initiates a secure web connection or HTTPS connection back to the cloud-based management system. There is a capability being added to support SNMP type interactions for legacy equipment or third-party equipment. We're also working with a number of third-party suppliers to integrate the device agent into that third-party equipment. So in some cases, you'll see CN Maestro support added to some third-party devices and support in that fashion. Next question is, when will the firmware upgrade be released for the 30 megahertz channel upgrade and the 40 megahertz channel upgrade? Right now, the 30 megahertz channel, which will support, again, this is on the PTP 450i, and this is for the 5 gigahertz PTP 450i. That will be at the end of June for 30 megahertz, and we're looking at the end of July for the 40 megahertz. So both of those will be coming down the pipeline pretty quickly. In fact, we're just starting out some beta testing now with the 30 megahertz channel, and things are looking quite good there. So that's well on track. Somebody asked about getting a copy of this presentation. The recording of this will be posted on our website, and then I think everyone who attended will get a link to that recording, so you'll be able to get access to this. And then, is dynamic interference filtering a feature supported by all 450i models? So it is supported on the 5 gigahertz 450i model. It is not on the 900 megahertz, and it will. We're looking at in the roadmap around a 3 gigahertz version of the 450i, and when that product is announced, that would likely support that as well. And then I have one more question here, which is, are there any quality of service enhancements coming on the 450 or the 450i? We do have a whole roadmap of software capabilities and enhancements coming on the 450 platform. I would suspect more of those features are going to land on the 450i as things move forward. As I mentioned, the 450i has more memory and more processing power. So there's some work. I don't have specific dates on this, but there are some thoughts around adding additional 2 levels so that we would have 4 levels of quality of service. That would allow some more some multi-tenant applications or some more enterprise type features or capabilities. So that's one area that I know is under consideration in the roadmap, but I don't have that specific date for that. What I would suggest, if you have a thought like that, is to we have a feature request area on the community forum, and oftentimes the engineers that are working on that feature, I know they read it, and oftentimes they'll reply with questions or follow up just to try to pick your brain on what you have in mind for how to improve the product. So I'd suggest maybe posting something on there, and we can get a conversation going offline. Okay, there's another question here. So great, I love all these questions. I appreciate everybody participating in the session today. Does the PTP 450 use the same air interface as the PMP 450, and can they coexist? So there's a couple thoughts there. One, they certainly do use the same air interface. So the PTP 450 and the PMP 450 are using the same technology and the same platform and the same air interface. The question about whether they can coexist is more a question of configuration and making sure that, as I mentioned before, things like channel bandwidths, TDD ratios are all consistent. And also you can sometimes run into a case where point-to-point links are longer distance than point-to-multipoint, so you have to adjust the air interface a bit to make them coexist. So it's certainly possible. There's information in the user guide about how to achieve that. Oftentimes our customers achieve that by simply providing a little bit more channel separation between the point-to-point and the point-to-multipoint products. But it is certainly possible if you're going to co-locate lots of point-to-point and lots of point-to-multipoint in the same tower. It's certainly possible. The point-to-multipoint product, one of its key attributes is the ability to do AB channel reuse, or simply stated, 2 channels to cover full 360 degrees coverage. So the nice thing about that is, with a tower of 4 sectors of point-to-multipoint, I'm going to use 2 channels, and then it still leaves me lots of spectrum to select a backhaul that's channel separated and can use that PTP 450 or a PTP 650 for that matter. Okay, looks like the questions, I think I've hit everything in the queue here. If you have any last-minute question, feel free to fire it in here. I think we did want to mention one other thing. Andrew, do you want to talk about that video?
Yeah, of course. So as you see in the post right now, we currently are running a video contest. We did something similar here during our first quarter as well. So if you can submit your videos onto our form of your deployments, we can see specifically, and there'll be a poll put on to vote on those specific videos that were posted, and then from those videos there will be prizes. Obviously you can see from the first prize you'll get a PMP 450 IAP, 3Ms, and some branded gear. So you'll see from the different prizes and different polls, you'll see specifically what you can get. So I highly recommend posting all those. Voting obviously ends through the end of June, so I highly recommend that, and it's never an issue, because if you're already climbing your towers and so forth, you might as well get a recording, and you never know what might happen. It's free gear, so I highly recommend doing that. But if you don't have any other questions.
No, I just say on that video contest, take a look. You can go on our website, and all the videos from last quarter are up there as well. So if you can get some ideas on what kind of videos, and I know we just a few weeks ago shipped out all the prizes for first quarter. So looking forward to see these videos. There's a lot of really cool stuff up there, and different ways that people have approached the contest is pretty neat to see.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Without further ado, that's it for us here today. We'll see you guys soon. Thank you, Bruce.